Well, good morning. It's good to see you. Those of you who have gathered here with us in person, we welcome you who have joined us online, and we're so grateful that we can worship together in this way, just as Kathy Kimball was sharing earlier. And I'm thankful that we have that privilege. It's good to be in the house of the Lord and to be in the house of the Lord, connecting us in this way, whether you're at home or here with us, or wherever you may be on the face of the planet, joining us today. And so we're thankful for your time here. You know, we're talking about a series on discipleship, and this particular part of the series is talking about ways that we can be with Jesus. And you can see here from the title, it's talking about making time alone with God a priority in our lives. And you think one of the ways that we can do that is through a practice of solitude and silence. And solitude is where we pull ourselves out away from the distractions of life. Silence is where we reduce the noise around us in order so we can hear. But silence is also so that we can be quiet in the presence of the Lord. And so we're pulling ourselves out of distractions, isolating ourselves, and quieting ourselves before the Lord. You know, my son, a few years ago, he told me, he said, "Dad, I'm saving money for some noise-canceling headphones." He's a big-time online gamer. We have any gamers here? You know what I'm talking about? And so he would already isolate himself and do this one, but that wasn't enough. He needed the noise-canceling headphones so he could just be intense. I'm going to tell you something. Those dudes work. They cancel out everything. The world may fall apart. It may be bombed out all around it. He wouldn't even know it. He'd be so intense. Well, that's what we're talking about here. And solitude and silence is to be in a place where we're intently focused on the Lord. Well, that's a call for us as disciples to be with Jesus. A disciple is a follower of Jesus who is with Jesus, who is being changed, transformed by Jesus. That's the next part of the series. And becoming like Jesus. And we need to be with Him. And the truth is, we live our lives surrounded by noise and surrounded by distractions all around us, so much so that it's like it becomes a normal part of life. You know, it's like the city boy that goes off to the country and says, "Shore is quiet." You know what I'm talking about? We just get used to it. And you know, so much so that we can find silence to be uncomfortable. Know what I mean? You ever been with a group in a Bible study or something, a group of people, and it may be a question, there's something, and then it just gets real quiet. And you're sitting there thinking, somebody needs to say something. This is uncomfortable. We need to fill the room with some words. It's uncomfortable. Well, that's the way it is for many of us. We want to break the silence. And if you're somebody, you know, like you like distraction, or you like noise, or you like, you know, that it's difficult. So imagine trying to find time and place of solitude and silence, and just how difficult a practice that is, right? And yet, one of the most important things we can do is find time alone with Him and be with Him. And in our passage today, we find Jesus Himself in solitude and in silence, to be alone with the Father. And he is modeling for us a a discipleship discipline that spends time to be with the Father. Now I'm going to tell you something. Silence and solitude is not so much so we can get something from Him, but it's so that we can be with Him. But when we are with Him, man, the benefits are amazing. When we're with Him, we find rest. When we are with Him, we find safety, we find recovery, we find guidance, we find healing, we find security, we find confidence, just being with Him in solitude. Now, let's look at our passage today, beginning with verse 35, Mark chapter 1. It says in verse 35, it says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, while it was still quiet, and still, Jesus got up, He left the house, and He went off to a solitary place where He prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for Him. And when they found Him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you!" Exclamation point. And Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." So He traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. Solitary place, solitude. So here's what I want you to walk away from this place today, and that is something we all know, and that is the best way to get to know someone is to spend alone time with that person. To be with them away from the noise and away from the distraction. That's the best way we know to get to know someone else. And listen to this, listen. If Jesus in His humanity made time to be alone with the Father, then how much more important is it for us to be alone with Him, to get to know Him, right? Well, we all feel it. We feel when things are been all out of shape and we need a retreat. We know when we need some self-time, some time. They have retreat areas when you just all bogged down and all, from the weight of the work and the job and the performance and mentally and emotionally, you're just worn out. You just need time away with yourself. Sometimes we need marriage retreats. And a marriage retreat is a time when this couple, they can feel it. Maybe they just want to strengthen a relationship and they get off together and there they just spend time with each other, renewing their relationship, getting to know each other, maybe dealing with some things that are in the way. We have staff retreat where staff goes off together and we are together with each other and we are listening to one another and praying with one another and we are planning together, hearing what God has to say. And then there's youth retreat. That's youth camp. Youth retreat. It's a retreat for the parents when the youth are gone. I know it's youth retreat. It's youth camp. And when they go off, it's pulling them out of the world in order to get them in a context where they can be with God and hear God. I don't know how many times, maybe you would have the same experience. You'd talk about those times when you were a young person and where you're just really trying to figure out life, but God spoke to you in a powerful way at that youth retreat that youth camp, right? And here's what's important. We talk about getting away with someone to get to know them. Well, here's the thing. If we don't make it a part of our regular life, if we don't plan it, if it's not scheduled, then it will just seem to slip away. We just say, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to do it sometime. I know I need to do it. But it will just seem to slip away. Well, here we find Jesus practicing getting away. You remember reading, when we read verse 35, what it said, it was early in the morning, and while it was still dark, and Jesus got up, left the house, went off. It literally says he got up, he went out, and he went away. He left the building. He went away. And it says that he went to a solitary, desolate, deserted, isolated. All of that is encompassed in that word. He went to that kind of place to be alone with the Father. And listen, we know the busyness as we read through the Scripture, the busyness of what Jesus had faced. We know the level of exhaustion that we had faced, but that he would have faced. But it doesn't say that he went there to find rest. It says that he went there to pray, to be alone with the Father. And in a way, he is giving up the busyness in order to abide and the blessing of abiding. And he is giving up the crowd and the multitude and the work momentarily so that he could find the presence of the Father. And so Jesus went. And of course, what we're told next is the disciples, they didn't really get it. They didn't understand it at first. Now, they will later, but they just didn't understand it at first. It says when Simon got, he's looking around and he can't find Jesus. And he formed a search party. That's what's going on here. He's formed a search party. We have got to go and find Jesus, like he was lost out there. So he wandered off. He's lost out there. We've got to go and find Jesus. Jesus! I don't know if it was still dark. By the time they had their little candle, their little olive oil lamp, I'm not sure. Jesus, where are you? Jesus! Now, I'll tell you, as soon as you try to find your place of cell, there's going to be somebody crying out for you. They just didn't get it at first. A search party was... And then when they found him, I want you to notice, when they found Jesus, notice it says, everyone is looking for you. What in the world are you doing out here praying? The very least, out of courtesy, you could have let us know that you were going. What are you doing out here? People need you. That's what it's saying. You know what they were doing? They were in a hurry. They were in a hurry to get Jesus back to work. People need you. What are you doing out here? Getting back to work. Now, there's a very important principle at work here that we must not miss. That so often we are just like the disciples. We just don't get it. We are very busy for Jesus. We are doing a lot for Jesus. We are making a lot of sacrifices for Jesus, but not spending much time with him. And in a way, this passage flip-flops that to give us the right priority. A disciple's task, first and foremost, is to be with him. And if we are with him, then we are informed by him. We are spoken by Him. His Word is spoken into us. We are changed by being with Him. We can't change ourselves. And we become like Him in the process. It is possible to do a whole lot of work and busyness and to fill our lives with the noise and the distractions of life and not be with Him, and in the process do a lot for Him but not be like Him. And so there's this very important principle here. Come out of the world. Come away and be with me. Now, a few years ago, my wife and I were traveling, and we were going up to Dallas from here to see our kids. And like we have often, we'll put in a book and listen to an audio book. And this particular trip, we listened to the book titled The 5 Love Languages, a great book. And what the author says is that there are 5 basic love languages, and each one of us has a primary. Maybe we'll have a very close or a secondary, but then all of us are weakest in one of the 5 love languages. And this is what I learned. My wife's love language is quality time. And my weakest of the 5 love languages is quality time. I've tried to fix her. So here's the thing. I could be at home with her on let's say a Saturday and spend the whole day there. See? Time with her there. Cleaning, mowing, doing a lot of stuff, cleaning up, straightening up. Most of it's my stuff. 40 pairs of socks. How do you have 40 pairs of socks in the den? I don't know, but let's get them out of here. And then at the end of the day, she could say, I just wish we had time together. And I said, say what? We just spent 10 hours together. But see, it's not quantity time. There's nothing wrong with quantity time. But quality time is where you are intently focused, giving them attention, listening, understanding, getting it. See, all those years, my wife would say, talk, and she'd say, are you listening to me? And I go, yeah. Then she caught on to that. What did I say? Something about some of y'all looking at me like, yeah. But you get it. See, quality time is where you're focused, intently focused. Well, that's what taught me about what Jesus wants from me. I can dance for Him and do a lot for Him and show off for Him, and I can prove to Him how important He is in my life. But at the end of the day, He just says, I wish we had time together. That's very humbling. So the only way we can really get to know someone is if we spend time with them and we hear them speak and we listen to what they're saying. And it may be talking about a lot of things, but those lot of things are really, I'm afraid, or I'm concerned, or I'm tired, or I'm confused. And you're hearing that and you go, hey, I want you to know I'm here with you. It's time with. And solitude and silence is like that. It is just time, quality time, focused on and listening to. to get away from the demands and to get away from the noise and the people that distract, to silence the phone, the music, the meetings, and just be alone with that person and with Christ. So listen, we all know what it feels like to be neglected. I'm not saying that you have been really, but we know what it feels like. We know what it feels like to be ignored. And we know how painful it is. And we know what a relationship looks like when it has been ignored, when it has been neglected. And we know what it feels like to be in that relationship. But what if in solitude and silence, we gave God time to speak? I don't know about you, so much of my prayer time is just me, what, this, and I'm bad, I'm good, I'm great, I'm no good, help me, do this for me. Oh, no, it's not me, for somebody else. That's their prayer time. You know what I'm talking about? It's all talk. You ever called somebody and they talk the whole time without breathing for 30 minutes? I don't point anybody out. I've done... But it is where that's me. Often in my conversation with God, solitude and silence is just giving Him time to speak. And what if we gave Him time to speak so that we could discover our true self instead of our false self? Often we're talking about the true self, not the Instagram self, not the Facebook self, but the true self when in the presence and before the face of God. What if it was like that, and it'd be like the prodigal son who we are told came to his right mind. You know what that is? He came to his true self. And he was broken and opened by that. What if in the pain of loneliness, when we come before Him in solitude and we listen to Him, in the pain of loneliness we find that loneliness is met because we're in the presence of the one who matters the most. We are not alone. What if the troubles we face in life receive a fresh anointing in the love of Jesus? What if the alone time we lay our pain before Him, it's uncovered maybe, and we receive grace and forgiveness and healing of our wounds, mind, heart, soul? And what if we were to rediscover our true value in a world in which it's all about proficiency and it's all about performance and it's all about doing and doing well in order that you might find your true value, and it just wears you out. But before the Lord, we find that our value is in His presence and who we are, not for what we do for Him, but just who we are because of Him. Amen. Just imagine. So, just think about when Jesus emerged. When He emerged from that time of solitude and silence, let's say, when He emerged. I want you to see, look at this slide. It says, verse 38, there's a reaffirming of identity. Jesus says, when they found Him, He says, "This is why I have come." We often need to be reminded of our value, of our worth, of our importance, of what God is doing through us. It may be at the end of the day and just the exhaustion of the day, he retreated to an isolated place just so he could hear the voice again, "This is my beloved Son." And just the reminder, because when you are backed up against the pain or the sorrow or the suffering or the sacrifice of being a follower or being under the call of God to something, there are just times that you just want to just give up, but instead Jesus went and he found the solitude, and when he emerged, he said, "This is why I have come. This is why I'm here." We just have to be reminded sometimes. And then there's a renewing of the mission, this mission. So sometimes it's just this energy, right, that goes along with it, this mission. And it says that he went into the villages, he went into the city around Galilee, and he drove out the demons, preached and drove out the demons. He's back in it, in full force. The very reason why he came, mission. That's what it is when we are before the Lord. There is this renewing, reaffirming of our identity, who we are, and a renewing of the mission, a mission to preach the gospel, to make disciples of all people, right? So the question that you saw come up here is this question, exercise, I guess, in solitude and silence, is what are you going to do with this? Now, all of us, especially if you're surrounded by noise and distraction and always something to do, it's going to be hard. But what if? What if we did it? What if we accepted God's invitation, spend time alone with Him? What if we did it? Then the question is, when will we do it? Where? What is, to me, it's the tools that you take with you into that time. You're taking with you the word, your journal, a pen, and you're just listening to what God has to say for whatever time you give it. And the why is the hope. And maybe it's going to be discovered. Sometimes we don't know, but the why would be to be with Him, right? And sometimes we have to be extremely creative of how we're going to get that done. You know, there are retreat centers around where you just go for a day and it's a place of silence and solitude, sometimes more than one day. Sometimes if you're a young mother of little babies or children, then it's hard to find that. But when you put them down for a nap, maybe that will be one of those days you're going to say, "I just want to be quiet before the Lord." I remember Corrie ten Boom in her book, The Hiding Place, where she had been arrested, and her family had been arrested for hiding Jewish men and women and children from the Nazis. And when they found out, she was arrested and put in a concentration camp. And there, amidst all of the misery and the malnutrition and the suffering and the heartache, there amidst the fleas and the harassment, she said that she would be times when she would take her blanket and pull it over her face, over her head, and that would create a place of solitude and silence, her hiding place. What if? I think that it is really where we walk away revived because we have been with Him. But what if God was inviting you, just you, for dinner for two? Would you accept it?
One day, God slipped me a divine invitation to a candlelight dinner for two. He drew a beautiful inscription that made me feel less persuaded and more pursued. "Come out from the multitude," he wrote. "I want to dine with you in solitude." Immediately I was in pursuit, leaving the audience of eyes I was in service to. I had always been a victim of public servitude, needing people to see me. Recognition was my being, attention gave me meaning. If ever I went somewhere alone, I left a little bird behind, singing of me tweeting. But now I was retreating, away from the eyes of others, into a night alone with my Father. I followed that divine invitation farther and farther until I was no longer able to walk, and that's where I found the table. At the line where the wilderness begins and civilization stops, there was God, dressed in stillness, robed in rest. The table was set with the utensils of quietness. We began by feasting on my insecurities. The appetizer appeased my appetite for approval's applause. No longer did I hunger for others' healing attention gauze, for I was wedded with undivided obsession from my God. I started to forget the multitude as I dined with him in solitude. Then the entree made its way to my plate, and as it took shape, I started to shake, for I saw on the tray a clock that was sure to take what was surely mine, for I realized we would be eating time. But as I digested the time-tested clock, I stopped constantly checking my watch and only watched his eyes on mine. The longer I spent away from the multitude, the more time was consumed in solitude. Then, once the main course was finished and time was devoured, I got the urge to leave and tell everyone of my divine encounter. But he told me it was not yet time to depart from the desert, for he had prepared for me one final dessert. Now that I had been taught to dine with God in a quiet place, the eyes of others to forsake, in his presence to make time wait, now I was ready for the softness of his voice, the icing of his words, in one sweet sentence of his cake. Finally, I escaped the voices of the multitude and heard God whisper softly to me in solitude. And that's where he's inviting you. God is slipping into your hand a divine invitation to a candlelight dinner for two. An invitation to hide from the eyes that surround you, rid yourself of the lies that hound you, break free from this thing called time that enshrouds you, and to be alone with the one who is all around you. Hear his voice, for you are being pursued. Come out from the multitude, he says. I want to dine with you in solitude.